But those four different products are built on three technical components. We have the data connectors that allows you to connect with different data sources on the web or on premises. You also have AI Builder that allows you to infuse artificial intelligence in any of your business processes without requiring a developer, neither a data scientist. And finally, you have the Common Data Service for Apps, or CDS, that allows you to model your business data and secure it. And then that data can be shared across all the Power Platform components. So when we look at Power Apps, it allows you to build highly customized application with role-based access control. We have Canvas apps that allows you to build those apps like a PowerPoint and Excel formulas. But you also have model-driven apps that are automatically built out of the Common Data Service. And finally, when it's time to share those business processes with people outside of the organization, you can use Power Portals. So these are the three main components of the Power Apps product line. When we move to Power Automate, there again, you have three main components. You can automate business processes across your organization. We call this business process automation. But you can also trigger actions for approvals, also business process workflows for business process management. And finally, you have robotic process automation, or RPA, that allows you to connect to multiple systems even if they don't have an API. With Power BI, it allows you to connect to multiple data sources at the same time with Microsoft or non-Microsoft backends to have a very custom dashboard that is interactive, that you can use AI to give you recommendations on how you can interpret your data, and all of that without requiring a database analyst. And Power Virtual Agent follows this self-service, low-code, no-code, or citizen development approach, but applied to chatbots. So chatbots will enable you to get those subject matter experts a more important role at creating content and not only creating apps. So with Power Virtual Agents, when you have use cases that are content heavy, this is oftentimes a better alternative than creating an app. And finally, you have the Common Data Service. So the CDS allows you to build a very complex database structure with high levels of security, all of that in low code and without requiring a database analyst. So you can jumpstart your apps using a standardized data model that is shared across all Microsoft Business applications. You can infuse business logic and security model. And then you can extend your own needs and integrate that across apps and services. And it's at the core of Dynamics 365, Office 365 feature, and it has Azure integration and even a native integration to Azure Data Lake Services Gen 2. So you can use the Data Lake service with putting data from your CDS in it to augment your analytics capabilities. So let's now talk about data connectors. Data connectors are shared across multiple products. These are the same connectors that you have in Power Apps, Power Automate, and Logic Apps. They share all the same security components like data loss prevention policies, AAD authentication, so you don't have to learn multiple technologies regardless if you're using Logic Apps or Power Automate. So when you don't find a connector that fits your need, over the 400 connectors that we have on the marketplace, you can create your own custom connectors. And a custom connector can allow you to connect to anything that has a REST API or an HTTP API. You can connect using Open API definition or even from Postman. And all of those connectors, again, can be shared across either the Power Platform or Azure Logic Apps. When you build a use case or scenario, you'll have different choices of backends or data sources. So there's basically two types of data sources that you can use that are either tabular or function-based. So tabular data source is one that returns data in a structured table format. So then Power Apps can directly read and display these tables through galleries, forms, and other controls. So anything that is like a SharePoint list, anything that is like an Excel spreadsheet or CDS are actually tabular data. Additionally, if the data source supports it, you can also create, edit, and delete data from these sources, just like SQL and CDS, like I said. But then you have function-based data. So function-based data source is one that uses functions to interact with the data source. These functions can be used to return a table of data, but offer more extensive actions such as the ability to send an email, update permissions, or create a calendar event. So a good example of that is Office 365 users, Project Online, or the Azure Blob Storage. So when you think of the service that you will use to build your business scenario, if it's a database, most of the time it's going to be a tabular data, so you can read and write easily. But when it's more like a service base, this is where the function-based data will be more useful to your use case. So there's various components of a connector to make it work. So once you've established a data source and configure your connector, the two types of operation that you can use are triggers and action. So triggers are only used in Power Automate, so they can prompt a flow to begin. Triggers can be time-based, such as a flow which begins every day at 8 a.m., or they could be based off an action like creating a new record in a table and receiving an email. You will always need a trigger to tell your workflow when to run. And those triggers can be a button with the Flow mobile app, or even a button that you can have in Excel, in Dynamics 365, in SharePoint, where you have in the ribbon now those Flow buttons that you can use to trigger your flow. And then, once the flow is triggered, you can have multiple sets of actions. And then they're used in Power Automate and Power Apps, and they're prompted by the user or trigger to allow interaction with your data source and some functions. So for example, an action would be sending an email in your workflow or app, or writing a new line to a data source. So basically, as soon as you have a trigger, you can have different actions to say, hey, if I create a new record in my SharePoint list, send an approval to my manager so then he approves it. And then when it's approved, we're going to have another action to update a record in my SharePoint list and make a copy of that record, maybe in a CDS or in SQL. So this is where triggers and actions are very powerful to enable you to build automation. So let's look at how we can pull it out together. When we think of any business solution that you want to build in low code, the one place to start from is data and services. And you can either connect to the command data service for apps. If you have a new need that requires a relationship table, role-based access control, and you want to automate backups and have connectors and everything, the CDS is often the best place to start. But sometimes you already have data or services, and Office 365 is a good place to start again. You might want to connect to a SharePoint list, use your email, a task in Planner to automate certain processes. It is the same thing if you have Dynamics 365, which is built on the Power Platform. At the core, Dynamics 365 uses CDS and model-driven apps, so that data is always available to you wherever it is. But in many cases, you already have some data. Maybe it's master database in SQL. You might have an SAP backend somewhere using IBM databases or Oracle, where that data is. You don't need to move that data away. You can connect to that data in read-write capabilities using the on-premises data gateway. But if your business process requires something that does not fall in those categories, it's where you have over 400 connectors to Microsoft and non-Microsoft products. And like we just saw earlier, if none of those 400 connectors give you a solution to your problem, you can build your own with connecting to anything that is REST API or HTTP or open data. So once you're pretty good with the data sources that you will use for your use case, the next thing to do is think about business processes. So from left to right, you say, hey, when I connect to that data, I want to be able to transform that data or analyze it, understand what's the sentiment of a tweet that a user has shared for customer service, or understand the content of an email so we can have extraction of addresses and classify it, hey, this is a country and this is other information that we can relate to a product. So this is things you can do with AI Builder. And some of the time, you will have to connect to systems that do not have an API. Let's say old AS400, some ASAP, where the connector is either too complex to build or it doesn't exist. This is where robotic process automation would allow you to interact with that database, but through the user interface. It will emulate clicks of your mouse and entries of your keyboard using dynamic data from any other steps of your business process. It uses Microsoft Power Automate. And then talking about Power Automate, what it's known for is pretty much the business process automation, or BPA. What you can do with that is you can connect to anything that has an API, define triggers and action. Let's say you want to build an opportunity every time you receive a new RFP. What you would do is that, hey, if I receive an email from a client, I want the PDF to be saved in Dropbox. Then I want to have an opportunity in Salesforce. And then I would like to have a team on Slack with the legal team and everything. And then sends information to SAP so the team can prepare a pallet to be shipped to our client. All of that can be done using Power Automate. And if you have Microsoft Solutions instead of all the other vendors that I mentioned, well, Microsoft Solutions are also part of Power Automate. And then the final part of the business processes is business process management, or business process workflows, as we call them. So for those of you who are familiar with Dynamics 365, you're familiar with those business process workflows because they were part of Dynamics. So what we did is we took them out, and they can now live in a standalone format and can connect to various things that are not necessarily Dynamics 365. So then you can have a set of steps and data information, and then trigger different workflows that will, have actions in different systems. And that workflow, again, can live as a standalone without requiring a Dynamics 365 backend. So now that we have set up our data sources in our business processes, the next step is, how will we interact with all of that? Well, the first natural place to start is Power Apps. So then with those apps, you can build mobile, tablet apps connecting to anything. Like an SAP backend, you can connect to the CDS, to Dynamics 365, or even a SharePoint list. And when you build those apps, there are actually hybrid apps that can be deployed either on your mobile or tablet, but also embedded in anything that can run an iframe. You can build those apps, embed them in Teams, in SharePoint, or even in non-Microsoft solutions that support iframes. And when that is perfect for internal users, and in some ways you can also share those apps externally to a smaller audience, but when you want to reach larger audience and make them part of your business process, you can use web portals. This is the Power Portals that we talked about earlier. And now, with Dynamics 365 data, with the CDS, or with Power Apps, you can now build mixed reality applications without requiring a video game developer. Until today, you needed a very small set of skills, or a very complex set of skills that very few people had to actually build mixed reality apps, either through the HoloLens or on your phone. But now with Power Apps, you can do those with low code and no professional developers. And then when you want to expand your business processes through chatbots, surveys, or build your own dashboards with Power BI, these are other ways that you will have a user experience connected directly to either the CDS, but it can also connect to other things. So each of those components, think of them as the different tools in your toolbox. You can use all of that to match the need of your processes without requiring a developer. But when those requirements are a little more complex, well, developer can still come and help you using the same technology, but bring much more in-depth components. We call this the Power App Component Framework. So when you build your solutions, they're very powerful alone, best of breed in most cases, but they work better together. So you will build your apps much quicker with the Common Data Service. Because by having all those business rules, business relationships, role-based access control in one place, regardless of the front end, you will always preserve data integrity and data security. And then you can share a single source of truth across your organization. As the Common Data Service standardizes your data with the Common Data Model, it is exactly embedded in there. And in the next module, we'll learn a little more about the CDM, which is part of the CDS. And then you can automate your apps with business processes like a business process workflow, AI builder. All of those components can be embedded in your Power Apps or in your Power Automate. And when everything is built on the foundation of the common data model, well, you already have over 200 standard entities that are put at your disposal that you don't have to recreate. So it makes your integration project much easier with other Microsoft products and non-Microsoft products. So in summary, you saw how the Microsoft Power Platform offers you a point-and-click approach which makes it easy for anyone familiar with Microsoft Office to create custom business solutions, data visualizations, and automated workflows. It enables users to do 3 key actions on data that helps them drive business by gaining insight, driving intelligent business processes with apps, and also automate business processes. And the products that we have help you do those actions because Power BI help you analyze and visualize your data. Power Apps will help you build and deploy customized app that works across web and mobile. And then connectors are bridges that allows you to send information from your data sources to your app or workflow and back. And finally, Power Automate will help you create automation workflows from simple to advanced scenarios. So that's the end of Module 1. Let's start Module 2 and see how the Common Data Service for Apps and Power Apps is a huge accelerator to get you started. In this module, we will explore, understand, and learn about what's the Power Apps and the business value it creates. We're going to learn how one of the world's largest airports is digitizing its processes using Power Apps. And then we'll discover the Common Data Service, or CDS. We'll explain what environment, entities, fields, and relationships are in the Common Data Service. We'll describe the differences between the Common Data Service and the Common Data Model, and we will explain in use cases and limitations of business rules and process flows. So what is Power Apps and what's the business value it creates? Well, Power Apps is a powerful tool for productivity. It streamlines business processes with integrated apps and workflows in your hub for teamwork and productivity. You can develop low-code apps and forms that enhances your productivity with Power Apps for Office 365. You can integrate and share apps and workflows within Microsoft Teams, and you can collect, manage, and distribute content and data using SharePoint, Microsoft Forms, and Excel. So the low-code backend with the Common Data Service will help you jumpstart your apps using an extensible data model with business logic, security, integration built in. It will allow you to enable AI through built-in cognitive services powered by AI Builder and Azure Cognitive Services. It will allow you to extend data and processes to external and anonymous users with Power Apps portals, support all your data, relational data, file and blob storage, log and search indexing, and it works effortlessly in Dynamics 365, Office 365, and it offers some Azure integration as well as powerful integration capabilities like virtual entities, connectors, and APIs. So remember when we were talking about the unmatched functional architecture flexibility of the Power Platform? So today we're going to be focusing on a few of those components. Mainly, we're going to be talking about those apps right here. We're going to be talking about apps and the Command Data Service, and they work seamlessly together. So there's 3 types of Power Apps. There's the Canvas apps, which is your basic PowerPoint and Excel formulas or expressions model. You have the model-driven apps that are built on top of CDS, and you have portals. When we look at the details of them, a Power App, Canvas app are a great option when you want to build an app from blank canvas. So then you can start by choosing the screen size, tablet or mobile. Then you have a blank screen from which you build. And it now supports some responsive design templates that you can use even with a Canvas app. You can interact with the data in your app by adding data sources, drag and drop various controls, and add the desired functionality by writing Excel-style formulas. Canvas apps provide you complete flexibility when building your app. They're usually very useful when you have any type of field intervention, or you have a use case where the same people will do the same task over and over again. And Canvas apps are great at that. But when you need something a little more comprehensive, sometimes for back-end scenarios, then you'll move to model-driven apps. So the model-driven app allow you to build from the data in the Command Data Service. In fact, it will not work without the command data service. So Power Apps will build you a great-looking, fully functional app to act upon and interact with this data. With model-driven apps, there's no need to worry about choosing an application size. It's responsive by default. It means that it works on your mobile and tablet with no extra work by you. And also it works fully offline. There's a offline capability in model-driven apps that you don't find in Canvas that allows you to save data locally in the device itself without using caching that you would have with a Canvas app. Only model-driven apps can do that. And then you can define the relationships, forms, views, business rules, and more at the data layer inside of the command data service, giving you enough control to get your business results without writing all of the formulas yourself. One of the main advantages of having all of that at the data layer, all those business rules, role-based access control relationship, is that in traditional development, you would do that at the UX layer. So you would have a front-end developer building all of that. In a citizen developer world with low code, most people will not have the technical skills. Plus, if they did, it would take way too much time. And you would rely too heavily on them doing the right thing, putting all of those business rules at the UX layer. So by putting all those rules at the database layer, not only you reduce the time it takes to build an app, anybody can build an app, but what if it's not an app? What if it's only a workflow or a chatbot? You still want all those business rules, role-based access control, and security directly from the data source. This is what the Power Platform is great at. So now, what are the low-code solutions for responsive website? Well, for us, it's Microsoft Power Portals. It allows you to create multilingual, responsive websites to engage with internal and external users and customers, partners, or employees. Multilingual is important here because the command data service can already support out of the box over 30 languages. If you do custom entities and you want to translate those, it's easy to export an Excel spreadsheet and just add those different translations in the languages that you want. But not only it does multilingual, it also does multi-currency. So if you have dashboards for sales that spans across different regions of the world where they use different currencies, all your data will be consistent in one base currency. And then you can just manage the exchange rate in a table for that. With portals, you can also use anonymous access or any of the commercial or enterprise login providers like Microsoft Account, LinkedIn, Azure Active Directory, B2C, and more. So people can have dedicated environment in portals with only their data. So if you want to create a new application system and then you want to have history of the application that is applicant made, well, this is a good way to do it. Also, you can use a WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, designer to create website content and enrich with CDS Dynamics data using familiar construct like forms, views, and charts or dashboards. Most of the time, everything that you've already set up in the CDS, like your views, forms, will also be available in Power Portals, just like they're available in model-driven apps. And by doing so, it helps you build those apps with the data structure that you want much faster. You can also extend your portals with Pro Dev extensibility and using template capabilities to design complex business processes. Actually, Power Portals support liquid language. So if you want to change some details, how pages flows, how the way they look, you can have a professional developer that used to build websites using languages that is common to modify and customize your Power Portal. And finally, Dynamics 365 provides integrated starter templates like customer self-service, partner management, event management, and community self-service. So those Dynamics 365 portals, they're actually the same portals as we have with the command data service. And since the Dynamics 365 data model includes more extensive stuff like event, like customer service cases, there's already a number of templates that are out of the box that you don't even have to customize. You just need to, launch them and it works. So when it's time to add artificial intelligence to your app with no code, we have a tool we called AI Builder. So since Power Apps has democratized artificial intelligence by providing a wizard-based interface for building and training your model, well, it unlocks the power of Azure machine learning and cognitive services without writing a single line of code or creating complex machine learning models. But not only that, because when you do AI on Azure, well, you need an Azure subscription, you need an Azure dashboard, you need all the right security roles just to access it. And then you need to create resource groups and do a ton of management that we, with the AI Builder side of it, take care of for you. So AI Builder is a software as a service, low-code citizen developer version of what you can do with other options on Azure Cognitive Services and machine learning. And so far, we have 11 different models in 2 categories of AI Builder. So you can build custom models that will allow you to do predictions, forms processing, object detection, category classification, and entity extractions. So all of those models will give you lots of flexibility to tailor to your needs, but without the complexity of doing this in Azure Cognitive Services. And then you have the pre-built models, where you can have business card reader, text recognition, category classification, key phrase extraction, language detection, and sentiment analysis. These, by default, do not allow you much more flexibility because they are pretty much off-the-shelf pre-packaged version of it. So you can do detecting a language of a tweet or an email and then detect the sentiment and then extract the classification of that saying, hey, this is an address, this is a city, this is a product. So you can build all of those things without code and without requiring an Azure subscription. All of that is included in your AI Builder add-ons. So now let's switch gears to security and administration. To manage security for Power Apps and the whole Power Platform, you can access it through the admin Power Platform at Microsoft.com. We call this PPAC, Power Platform Admin Center. And you'll find all the options for creating, managing your environments, monitoring your licenses, working with data loss prevention policies, and managing your customer data service, data integration projects. This will allow you to manage the Power Platform through your tenant from one single place. In fact, the PPAC, or Power Platform Admin Center, now regroups all the different admin centers that we used to have for Power Automate, that was called Flow at the time, Power Apps, Power Virtual Agents, and even many Dynamics 365 features now. So you no longer have to log into each individual admin centers. They're all in the same place. And then you have a list of all your different apps, environments, solutions. This is what you manage in terms of security and administration. So Heathrow Airport is one of the largest airports on the planet. And our friend Sumit there was a security guard. And Power Platform changed his life. Because as a security guard in an airport, when you're close to the security checkpoints, many directions that you give to the travelers will be in your own language. So you say, hey, do you have water in your bag? Can you please remove your laptop, big cameras? If you go through most airports, and most of you speak English, you will probably not have any problem anywhere else you are, anywhere you are in the planet. But if you are somebody from India who only speak Punjab and you're at Charles de Gaulle's airport, there's good chances that the directives that you receive, well, you won't understand them. So security officers until today, what they had like little flashcards that will try to understand what language you speak. Is it Cantonese or Mandarin? And then show you cards and say, hey, do those things, please, so we can accelerate your processing. So what Sumit said was like, hey, how can we make this better? On his own time, he went home and he built a first Power App to do just that, where a person can only click on a flag and then all the direction will be given in their own language, shortening the time for processing through security, making all travelers go better. And then he created a number of apps, I think over 20 apps about in a year. He was promoted to manage a team of people creating apps with Power Platform. And he went from a security guard to an IT manager. Changed his whole life. And there's a video on YouTube about Samit Saini and Power Platform, and I invite you to take a look at it. It's going to give you a good idea of the power of the Power Platform, both for organizations and individuals. So now, let's dig deeper in the common data service. The CDS is probably one of the most misunderstood feature of the platform. For those who don't come from Dynamics 365 backgrounds, because for those who are coming from the CRM or the customer engagement modules, you will probably find a lot you already know about here. So, when you want to build a solution to a business problem, you have many options for your databases. If you remember in the architecture conversation that we had, you can use SharePoint, CDS, on-premise data gateway, and there's other options as well, like Azure Blob and SQL. What are the options that are the best suited for your need? Well, one might be SQL Server, and SQL is a relational database. It's offered as a YAS or a PAS solution, and it's great for large volumes of data. And many organizations will use this as a master data repository. It means that you'll put all your important data in there at large volumes, all your clients, all your parts, and then multiple systems will connect to that. And since it's master data, you will probably need some advanced master data quality systems to make sure that all the last names, they start with a capital letter, validate the addresses, parts number. So master data is great at large volumes for SQL databases. And in many occurrences, you'll already have that data somewhere on an on-premise data gateway or on an on-premise data source to which you will connect through the on-premises data gateway. And those databases oftentimes are SAP system, Oracle, or again, maybe some sort of a SQL database that serves as a master data. The challenge with SQL is oftentimes in all the ways of building application, you will have like a database for each app. And there's not a lot of apps mutualizing the same databases. And in the recent years or the recent models, when tools are simpler to use, like SharePoint, for example, it's easier to say, hey, I'm going to build one backend and then I can have multiple types of use cases on top of that. The challenge with SharePoint List is that there's a limit of the number of records you can have there without having problems, especially through with Power Apps. There's a limit called delegation. So when you make a search on a SharePoint list, trying to find let's say the 1001 record might be a challenge because delegation can be anywhere from 100 to 1000 depending of the complexity of that line. And SharePoint lists are not great at having relationships between, let's say, account and contacts and preserve the security of those things and also preserve the security, but also as a user seeing only what I have access to using role-based access control. So SharePoint is great for smaller lists that are most of the time simple in database structure, like say 1 or 2 tables. But when your need is to have a database that has relational data, role-based access control, multi-language, multi-currency, super secured in the cloud with automated backups, automated logs that can work with files, data in one single secure location, well, the CDS is most of the time great for that. The CDS is a combination of multiple services. It's a combination of APIs that all your apps can connect to and your services, but also it gives you everything to secure authentication, REST encryption by default. And also it has an auditing mode where every data that changes, you have a track to see, hey, what was the record before, who changed it to, and what's the new value. There's also lots of logic included in the CDS, like jobs that you can prepare for backup or transformation of your data, calculated and roll-up fields, business rules, duplicate detection, a number of plugins that you can extend the capabilities outside of those different logic, and workflows that are slowly being replaced by Power Automate, but there's still a fair amount of workflows embedded in the CDS as of now. Then there's, of course, your data, but you can catalog and do discovery. You can do data modeling, reporting, data validation, and the common data model is part of that. And we'll get back to that, to the CDM, in a few seconds. And then you have storage. So your relational database, the schema of your database is embedded in there. And you got files and blobs. So in the CDS, the SQL part of the CDS is good for your data and your data relationship, but it's good for binaries that are, just basic data and relationships. But when you want to add files to that, file storage in CDS never been optimized for that, for search and just the size and the volume and the pricing model are not necessarily well adapted. But there's Azure Blob Storage packed together with your CDS, with your SQL database. So you can share and save those files with the same level of security that the record is actually secured. And then you have log files, you have semi-structured data, you have advanced search, and also you have native integration to Azure Data Lake Services Gen 2. So at any point you can export your data into the data lake of your organization and mix in that data with other data sources. If you think of the Open Data Initiative, that we share the same data model between the Adobe marketing tools and SAP ECC and ANA, they all end up in the same AD List Gen 2 in the same data model, so it's much easier for you to do analytics without having to perform a large-scale integration project beforehand. So that data lake native connection really helps you with your analytics. And then those integration, you can have event-based integration directly from the CDS, either using the API or using the Power Automate features, because there's a number of triggers that are coming from CDS that are out of the box embedded in Power Automate. You can use webhooks and also, do data exports with many different ways. So if we take an overview of the CDS, from the security perspective, the Common Data Service handles authentication with Azure Active Directory. That allows for conditional access, multi-factor authentication. It supports authorization down to the row and even the field, while providing rich auditing capabilities. From the logic perspective, the Common Data Service allows you to easily apply business logic at the data layer. Regardless of how a user is interacting with the data, the same rules apply. These rules could be related to duplicate detection, business rule, workflows, or more. From a data perspective, the CDS offers you the control to shape your data, allowing you to discover, model, validate, and report on your data. This control ensures your data looks the way you want, regardless of how it is used. From a storage perspective, the CDS will store your physical data in the Azure cloud. Since cloud-based storage removes the burden of worrying about where your data lives or how it scales, these concerns are all handled for you. And the Azure cloud has one of the highest security certifications on the planet in all the regions where it is deployed. And then, ending with integration, CDS will connect in different ways to support your business needs, API, webhooks, eventing, and data exports to give you flexibility to get the data in and out. So CDS, within 3 clicks, gives you all of that. It's really there to jumpstart your business solution. And you can use CDS with Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, with Microsoft Forms Pro. All of those things will remain clean and secured, regardless on how you interact with that data. So now, let's talk about the data. And for that, the Common Data Model is what we're talking about. So the Common Data Model is actually a set of entity design and relationships that are shared across all the Microsoft business applications and productivity application. So when you're talking about a contact, a person that has an email address, a phone number, a date of birth, all of that data formatting is the same across all the Microsoft ecosystem, regardless if it's a contact in Outlook, a contact in CRM, or a contact in CDS. And while having a common data model helps you to make sure that the data is consistent, it reduces the amount of time you have to spend to build integration, because you don't have to build all those transformation, extraction, or ETL workflows that will do that for you. It's taken care of for you. And the CDM is published on GitHub. It's open sourced. And there are many more solutions and software developers that use the CDM now to model their database. The CDM also comes with a bunch of accelerators which is great because if you say, hey, I want to build a solution for banking. I want to have a KYC process. We call the Know Your Customer. And I would love to be able to have a definition of what is a person, what is a family, what is a household, because this is how we manage our processes in the finance world. Or what if you have something in the automotive world where you need to have a vehicle, services, you have the owner and the users of a vehicle. All of those definitions are part of different common data model. So then we have all the same ways of describing persons, but they're packaged together in industry accelerators that you can download in any Microsoft data system like the CDS or SQL database. And it's using those common data model that allows initiatives like ODI or the Open Data Initiative to work much more effectively with Adobe and SAP to build ODI. So all of those different tables in your schema, and let's just take a second to look into it. Here you have all your normal entities. So you have your core, which is like accounts, activities, contacts, currency, email, everything. And then you have all your CRM add-ins that are accounts, appointment, campaign. And then if you have modules in CRM that is around sales or customer service, then you have competitors, discounts, invoice, and also from a service perspective, cases, contact, resources, and service. And the other solution of Microsoft that are built on CDS use other part of the accelerator, like for talent, so the department, job position, the worker, or in healthcare with patients and practitioner. All of those things are standardized, and then you can build a number of apps that will use them when they need. So you can have the application number 1, that is, let's say, your HR app, application number 2, which is your sales app. All of that will be using different data sources that are built around the data model or the CDM. And one data source might be the CDS, but other data sources might be plain SQL databases using the same definition. So it makes all your integration projects much faster and ensure that your data integrity remains the same across all systems. And again, on accelerators, you have here a number of accelerators that are already available to you for education, healthcare, financial services, nonprofit, and automotive. So, how do we integrate data with the common data service? Well, one very popular one is using a direct connection with like an Excel-like feature of Power Query that is relied on by millions of users each month. This is probably the fastest way to extract, transform, and load data to CDS. But then you also have built-in management features like the common data model, entity mapping. There's a full UX to help you doing that. And you have all those environment and schedule refresh of your data. So then you don't reduce or interrupt your productivity while having those data loads happening on business hours. You have over 300 transformations to clean and reshape data using Power Query. And then you can reuse data models across end users' experiences for Power Apps and other front ends as well. So the way you identify entities in the common data service, there's about 2 types of entities. There's a standard entity, which is the base set of entities that are created for every instances of a CDS. You can add more fields to any entity, but you can only delete fields from a custom entity. So if you want to edit a contact, an account, you can add many fields out of them without problems. You also have what we call complex entities. They're called complex because they contain server-side business logic, including real-time workflows or plugins. Some of the entities that are used in Dynamics 365 applications are considered complex. So care must be taken if you add server-side logic to ensure that users have the proper license to use the complex entity. Additionally, you can get the information about complex entities that can be accessed by the following link, and it's going to be in the summary as well. So from a functional perspective, everybody can use those entities that are complex or standard. However, from a licensing perspective, certain users in your user base might require additional licenses, either Dynamics 365 licenses or Power Platform like Power Apps plans per user or per app. Different fields in the CDS are a way to store a discrete piece of information within the record in an entity. You might think of them as columns in Excel. So fields have types, meaning that you can store data of a certain type in a field that matches that data type. For example, if you have a solution that requires dates, well, then you would store that date in a field with the type date. Similarly, if you want to store a number, then you store the number in a field with the type number. The number of fields within an entity varies from a few fields to hundreds or more. If you need more than a few hundred fields in an entity, you might want to reconsider how you are structuring data storage for your solutions, because likely there's a better way, either using different entities and relationships with those entities. Every database in the CDS starts with a standard set of entities, and each standard entities have a standard set of fields. Out of the box, the common data model already has some relationships and some tables: account, contacts, users, activities, and all of those fields come with, created on, created by, modified on, modified by, and all of those metadata that are used for reporting purposes or security purposes. Those standard metadata fields are also created anytime you create a new entity or a custom entity. So you might want to take some time to have a name and some attributes around the car that you're trying to define or the asset you're trying to define, but the fundamentals are there for you automatically, like created on, created by, modified on, modified by, status, if it is active or inactive. All of those standard out-of-the-box components are built for you. Now, let's talk about relationship. Imagine that you need to create a system to manage sales order. You will need a product list along with the inventory on hand, cost of the item, and the selling price. You also need a master list of customers with their addresses and credit ratings. Finally, you'll need to manage invoices of sales that you make, so you will want a way to store invoice data. The invoice data should include information such as date, invoice number, salesperson, customer information, including the address and credit rating, a line item for each item on the invoice. Line items should include a reference to the product that you've sold and be able to provide the proper cost and price for each product, and decrease the quantity on end based upon the quantity that you sold in that line item. Entities that relate to one another have a relational connection. Relationship between entities exist in many forms, but the two most common are one-to-many and many-to-many, both of which are supported in the CDS. Trying to connect or to create a single entity to support the functionality that was previously described would be inefficient. A better way to approach the business scenario is to create the following four entities: customer, products, invoice, and line items. When you create relational data, you will think of how many occurrences of a single record will be added to a parent record. If you have a list of companies, when you open that company, they might have one or many employees. So it would be ill-advised to create, let's say, I'm going to create like 5 fields that will be the 5 employees who work there. Well, what if they have 6? What if they have 200? You will not create 200 fields on your account entity for all the people who work there. You would create a relationship, 1, which is your company, to many, which are your employees. And in most cases, you will use the contact entity, and that relationship is already there for you. So then you can have one company, multiple employees. And it works the same for products, because you will have more than one product on an invoice, which is the most likely occurrence. Well, you have one invoice, and then you'll have many product lines that will relate to one or many products. So then you'll have 2 different relationships. You'll have the one-to-many relationships to the product line, and the product line item will have a different relationship to the products themselves. So this is how you can understand relationships, and there's many ways of doing that. Now, there's a way to set up your Power Platform in ways that will allow certain people to have access to certain assets or certain resources. So environments are used to store, manage, and share your organization business data, apps, flows in the Power Platform. Each environment allows you to provision one common data service database, so there's only one per environment, for use within that environment. So the CDS environment allows you to manage user access, security settings, and the storage that is associated with that database. Each environment is created under the Microsoft Azure Active Directory. It's in your tenant, and its resources can only be accessed by a user within that tenant. So all of those environments are within your Office 365 tenant and uses Azure Active Directory to authentify those users. An environment is also bound to a geographic location, like the United States. When you create a common data service database in an environment, that database is created within data centers in that geographic location. And the reason you would want to use different geos for your environments are the following. Think of it if you are, let's say, Contoso Americas, right? You have your headquarters in America, but you might also have regional headquarters in Europe, in Asia, in South America, and users in those areas will need to connect to a certain number of apps. Either there are specific apps for their specific use cases in all those regions, or just have a way to be closer to the data source to reduce latency. Or if you have companies in Europe that are under GDPR compliance, then you might want to have a certain subset of your data hosted in European databases for compliance. It is also a scenario that we see often in Asia. So multiple environments can be deployed in multiple locations, either for regulatory reasons or for reducing latency. An environment contains all of the things that we just mentioned, apps, workflows, users. So you can use also your environments not only for geographical reasons, but maybe to optimize application lifecycle management, allowing you to create an environment with a very small set of users that you will call your development environment, because only the developer will have access to those. This environment will be invisible to anybody else who's not part of the environment. So you can have 4 or 5 developers building a solution, and then they can repackage all of that, what they created, into what we call a solution. That's the technical term, that then they will re-import into a quality control environment, where maybe you'll have a set of super users or key users that will make sure that what is delivered meets their business requirements. And then again, that QA environment will only be visible to those that are invited to participate to this QA initiative. And then once you're done with QA, you might want to move everything that is in there into your production environment. So this is where you can use environment not only for geographic reasons, you can also use it for application lifecycle management. But there's another reason why you might want to use multiple environments in your organization. Is most of the time, you will have geographic reasons, but you might have business reasons to create different environments. Let's say you have an environment for, HR with a different set of data loss prevention policies that ensure that your data works in a certain way. But maybe marketing has different sets of needs with a data loss prevention policy that will be a little more flexible using Twitter and other things like that. And they might need separate databases because the type of data model that they need to build their solution is no connection with one another. Marketing might be around marketing partners and clients and everything, while your HR will all be about your employees and training, onboarding, and everything. And you might need another environment for your factories to manage health and safety management or employee maintenance of certain assets, asset security, IoT data. So you can have multiple environments to suit those business requirements with the appropriate level of data loss prevention policy, a separate CDS with the data model that is relevant to them, and also only the users that should really be there. So maybe marketing users are not relevant to be in your factory environment, and vice versa. So the 3 main reasons we see people using in different environments is geographics, application lifecycle management, or just business requirements. Now, in each of your CDS instances, you might have different business rules where you can define allow you to apply and maintain business logic at the data layer instead of the application layer. But more simply, if you create a business rule in a CDS, they are in effect regardless of how you interact with the data. Just like we said earlier, sometimes you build a CDS for an app, but maybe the same CDS will be used for a chatbot or a workflow or a portal. You don't want to recreate all those business rules in all of those front ends. You want the back end to make sure that the data stays secure and that data quality remains the same. An example of a business rule usage is when you are in a Canvas or model-driven app and you want to set or clear values in one or many fields in an entity. They can also be used to validate stored data or show error messages. Model-driven apps can use business rules to show or hide fields, enable or disable fields, and create recommendations based on business intelligence. So, in a way, a business rule, what it is just saying, hey, if I have a certain combination of different values in different fields, let's say if this field say yes, flag that other field as no, or as 20, or something else. Or if I give a discount that is more than 20%, check a box to say, hey, request that manager's approval. And those business rules will work regardless if it is a Canvas app or a model-driven app. You can also, in a model-driven app, hide sections and hide fields based on those values. The equivalent in a Canvas app might require just a little more work. The PPAC, or Power Platform Admin Center. So you'll find there most of the administrator setting that you need to, administer your Power Platform. You should always check for administrator setting as your first step when you're looking to administer the CDS. Settings are grouped to the following broad categories and are accessible by selecting the link in the left-hand side of the portal, as shown as in the following figures. You'll have your environments. This is where you have all your instances of CDS, your data loss prevention policies, data integration projects, and the tenant information. This is actually the older version of the PPAC that we see here. It was actually the Power Apps Admin Center that we are deprecating towards the unified Power Platform Admin Center. Just go to PPAC on the documents.microsoft.com to have the latest versions of that information. So in summary, Microsoft Power Apps allows users of any technical level to improve business processes. These apps are built using your existing skills and knowledge and without writing traditional managed code. These apps offer the ability to create highly flexible solutions built for different devices and consume the data from a multitude of data sources. Power Apps is a no-code, low-code, or citizen developer platform that allows you to build apps with your business knowledge and existing skills. Power Apps has different offerings to meet your needs: Canvas app, model-driven apps, and portals, and each have their own unique properties. Power Apps helps you build and deploy customized apps that works across web, mobile, embedded, or standalone on any device. You can build Power Apps that follows your business processes instead of making your business processes follow the software. On the other hand, the Common Data Service is a cloud-based data storage which allows you to leverage the security and connectivity of Microsoft programs. The CDS connects easily to all aspects of the Power Platform so that you can fully control, automate, and straighten your business with standard entities and fields, as well as the ability to easily define relationship between your data. Common Data Service was built for those who need powerful, scalable solutions. CDS uses standard entities, fields, and relationship to help you build powerful, scalable data solutions. Make your data work for you so that you can get the most of it by splitting out into logic chunks. And finally, using the CDS, you can break your data in various environments to better manage and secure important information.
Now that you know more about the various components that makes the Power Platform and so how Common Data Service can jumpstart your business application, let's take a 10-minute break before we start building apps and flows.
Business analysts to professional developers to work more efficiently together. Solving business problems with intuitive visual tools that don't require code allowing to work faster with a platform that enables data integration and distribution and extend the platform with building blocks for professional developers. Easily build and share apps on any device. You can also enable your business to innovate. Power Apps enables a broad range of app scenarios to be created that infuses digital transformation into manual and outdated processes. Use both Canvas and model-driven apps to build Power Apps that solves business problem for task and role-specific scenarios like inspection, field sales enablement, prospect to cash, and integrated marketing views. Build highly tailored application. Just start by designing your user experience on the Power Apps canvas. Customize every detail of your app to optimize for specific tasks and roles. Create apps for any device that uses a wide variety of control, including the camera, GPS location. Start from a sample app showcasing common business scenarios like expenses, reporting, or site inspection right out of the box templates. So, when we look at our different clients and the kind of apps they build, they usually fall within 5 different categories. On the horizontal axis, it will represent the level of complexity of the application that's being built. And on the vertical axis will be the number of users in the organization that are actually using the app that's been built. In the first category, we see personal team and productivity. Those applications are usually extending Office 365 use cases around agenda management, quick team organization around the SharePoint site, maybe using Microsoft Teams to get ideas around and flowing in your teams. And then you have simple line of business apps. Those simple line of business apps rely on data sources that already exist in your organizations, like Excel spreadsheets, SharePoint lists, maybe some PDFs. And you can then connect to all those different sources in a seamless experience that you can then share with people. Let's say that you are a territory manager for a retail brand and you have many stores to visit every month. And when you visit those stores, you always bring the latest sales number on an Excel spreadsheet. Then you might have the latest sales offers on PDFs. And you often have to do some check and spot check here and there to make sure that they have the right materials, that the places is clean. And what if you could bring all of those things in one single app and do this survey with the manager? Well, you can easily build that with Power Apps. And when things get a little more complex, not necessarily because it's more technically difficult, but when you need, let's say, a little more functional analyst aspect to it. You want to build a database with, secured locations, protecting personal information, complying to GDPR, having a much complex business processes that has multiple steps with the ability to come back and trigger different systems. Those applications can be for supply chain management or HR processes that are built usually with a little more skills that involve either technical or business skills. Then you have other mission critical applications for replacing plane engines or for repairing a train. When this app stops to work, well, you have risk of losing money or security risks, or sometimes both. And then the last categories of apps are apps that everybody uses in your organization. Most HR processes like vacation requests or expenses approval can be used across multiple people in the organization and with multiple backends at the same time. One of the largest used app in the world today is the Microsoft MS Vacation app used by all Microsoft employees. We were able to move from an older experience on a web page, relying on multiple different systems in a backend, to a more modern Power Apps, without changing the backend. But we also were able to add much more features to it. Now my manager can approve my vacations directly from modern approvals. And when these vacations are approved, Office 365 can set automatically my out-of-office auto message. This is the kind of apps that we see our clients building. About 80% of all the apps that we see in the market are built by citizen developers. Means anybody like you and I in the organization trying to make our life easier. 20% of the apps will be built by professionals, either pro developers, super users, center of excellence, or sometimes a partner. The reason why most of those apps are built by more people with more expertise is that sometimes it will require application lifecycle management, where not only building the app is important, but how it is being built with a development environment, a QA environment, a production environment. These are concepts that you might not want or that your citizen developer might not have. But this is where the Power Platform can bring solutions to both kinds of people, citizen developers and pro developers. So now let's learn the basic elements of Power Apps. It has many components and that will allow you to build solutions including screens, input galleries, forms, and more. Let's review some of the most common elements that you'll need to get started, from Power App Studios to functions. The Power App Studio is a web-based solution that allows you to build and share your apps. And it is available directly at powerapps.com, and you can sign in into the Power App Studio with your company credentials. You can choose app formats and different data sources. And then you can choose between different templates if you want to start quickly from something. Then you'll have different forms and also input controls that you can add into your app so it actually has all the elements that you need. You can also add intelligent controls like forms recognizer or also image detection right from the Power Apps Maker experience. So when you want your app to do something a little more specific that out-of-the-box controls can't do, then you can use functions. And functions are formulas and combined together to do many elements. So you can take parameters, perform an operation, and return a value. So if, for example, you have a value sqrt25 that returns 5, functions are modeled after Microsoft Excel functions. Some functions have side effects, such as submit form, which are appropriate only in a behavior formula, such as button on select. Signals return information about the environment. For example, location return the device's current GPS coordinates. Signals don't take parameters or have side effects. Enumeration return a predefined constant value. For example, color is an enumeration that has predefined values for red, blue, and so forth. Common enumerations are included here. Function-specific enumerations are described with the function. Named operators such as this item and parent provide access to information from within a container. So, how do you take all that we've seen together and bring it together into a single app? Well, let's do that. The first thing you might want to do is to start from Power Apps, the Maker experience. That is at powerapps.com. And from there, when you land, you will usually land at the Home section. And you can navigate on the left in different areas. You have learning modules, your current apps, creating new apps. Data will be everything around your common data service for apps, so you can build new entities and relationships. You have your Flows AI builder that are already included, and then solutions that allows you to package all your asset in one component that you can there move from one environment to another. But if you want to get a quick start, you'll get from the middle here with building an app from your data. You can use SharePoint, Excel Online, SQL Server, Common Data Service, and multiple other data sources. And by staying on the same page, you can also make an app from blank using a Canvas app, a model-driven app, or a portal. From the same page, you also have learning modules that will guide you step by step to get you started with Power Apps. And finally, you have all your apps that are available here. So let's start an app together using other data sources. In your data sources, you have multiple connections. Some of them might already exist. I already have a connection to my CDS, to OneDrive for Business, and to SharePoint. But you could, if you want, connect to anything else. Again, we have multiple connectors to Microsoft and non-Microsoft applications. The one we want to use now will be using OneDrive. And I can choose any Excel file in my OneDrive to create my app. In this case, a Contoso site tracking. So this is exactly the kind of app that the citizen developer will build, because so many people use Excel to do so many important stuff in the organization. So how can we make the experience better for the end users and much seamless? So let's select that Excel spreadsheet. And I have a table in there that's called Site Inspector. And I just need to navigate to the bottom here to the Connect section to connect to it. And now Power Apps will interpret the data and give me a first 3-screen app that I can work with. And those 3-screen apps are usually the kind of app that so many people can use. And the different components of those apps can be then expanded to make these use cases more tailored to my needs. But before we get started in customizing the app, let's look at how we can navigate through the Power Apps Maker experience. At the top, you have the same kind of features that you will find in PowerPoint. You have Home, Inserts, Views, and Actions. And then you have in the ribbon shortcuts to do certain tasks. And those shortcuts will activate when you select different items. So then you can select themes like the font that you're using, the size, the alignment, the color, and whatnot, just like you would do in PowerPoint. And then when you click the insert, you can then insert a new screen, a label, button, all of those different controls that we're talking about for input, a gallery, data table, forms, and also AI Builder controls that are available right here. Most of those features are available out of the box. And when you see that there's a little diamond shape, those features will require a premium license for your users to be able to use them. But most of the things that you will see today are already included in the Office 365 license that most people have. So now, once we saw what is on top in the ribbon, that will change based on what we're doing, we can also use the left navigation pane to navigate through our app screens. Think of a screen as you would think of a PowerPoint slide. The first one on top will usually be the landing page of your app, and then you can have multiple screens in your app, and each screen will have a number of controls that are already there that people can interact with, like a browse gallery. And then you can identify every subcomponent of that gallery here. And one of the reasons why you would like to navigate from the left navigation pane when you build an app is that when you have different components that are overlaid on top of one another, it's easier to reach them directly from the left navigation pane than trying to be surgical with your mouse pointer trying to select them on the screen. And our app has 3 screens. We have the browse screens, which has the gallery. We have a detail screen that has a detail form, so it's a read-only version of a form. And then we have the edit screen that offers us the capability to change the data using the edit form. And if we have a left navigation pane, you probably have noticed that on the right-hand side, we have the right navigation pane, in which you'll have more advanced features that you can interact with. Some of them sometimes are in the function bar, but also it can be features that does not require you to write any formulas, but you can only use the UI to do them. And finally, this is the formula bar. The formula bar will give you the chance to create more advanced features or controls over your app at different elements. So if you select text, then you can see here, you can migrate to what is the function will interact with. Are we going to change on the selection of the device? Is it visible or not visible? And then what it will do. Is it going to be giving me the address for the text? Is it going to be something else? So maybe here I can change the address to title. So then I can make my app look a little different. So instead of address, I have a title here. I can make those interactions directly from the formula bar, but I can also do those actions directly from the layout, changing the way they will show or what information they will show in the gallery. So I can say, instead of having the description being a description, I can maybe use a shorter description that we call notes. So you can do those things either using the formulas or the UI, and it changes the right thing. So some professional developers will prefer using formulas because this is what they're familiar with. If you have people that are very good at Excel functions, they might prefer to use the function bar. I'm more of a click and drag person, so I tend to use more of the available components that I can interact with from the UI. So let's look at our app and let's customize it to our needs. So here in the middle, I have my app. And you see that I already have data in it. So it allows me to make different choices to say, hey, maybe those blocks of text are too big. Maybe I can make them look a little better. So I don't want to have all that wrapping happening around here. So by selecting my gallery, a gallery is an item that allows me to display multiple records. A gallery can be vertical or horizontal. Think of it as a list. Simple as that. And in that gallery, I can select what the information from the database will be shown. In this case, the database being my Excel spreadsheet. But it could have been a CDS, a SQL, even a SharePoint list. So in the body of the area, you can see here, it selects the body automatically. Like we did earlier, I'm just going to put the notes because I think it's a little cleaner here. Okay. And then in that list, I already have search that is working for me and different elements for refreshing, sorting, and creating new records. So now what I want to do is actually testing my app. And to do that, the only thing I have to do is come here in the right-hand corner and select the play button that is right here. And by doing so, what happens is that it's going to open my app and now I can interact with it in real time. So let's say I want to filter the data only on the buildings we have in Bellevue. So I can just type Bellevue and select a building here. I have all the details about the building in the detail screen, and I can also edit the data in real time without having to publishing the app. So now that we've seen the different components of my app, let's dig a little deeper on each of them. So we already said that we have a gallery that we can make some changes to. Now let's look at the detail screen and how we can change the element of my form simply by going here on the right-hand corner, selecting Edit Fields. And I can then change the different location of each field. Say, hey, I want the address lower. I want the ID higher. Maybe I want to have like the name of the building. I can click Add Fields. And then I can add, let's say, the title. And then once the title is added, I can just bring it on top here. So I have the Contoso building in 3 Bellevue, and then I can hide certain fields that I might not need if I have to. Selecting by More Actions and removing the field City. And it works the same way with the Edit screen or the Edit form. I can select different forms and say, hey, you know what? I want to have this title field part of my app. So I can just come down here, select the field, and maybe add the zip code simply to my app. And again, I can simply bring those fields up there. So it makes a little more sense when I survey the data, what information will be displayed first. And as easy as this, I've created a 3-screen app starting from an Excel spreadsheet. And now, the only thing that I have to do is to publish my app. So the second exercise will allow us to look at what you can do with your app when it's built. We saw all the formulas so far, and now let's see how we can share this app. Sharing an app is very easy. Going back to the app that we just built together. The first thing I want to do with my app is to save it. So I go back to the main menu. I will give it a name, Site Inspection. I might want to give it a logo. We work at Microsoft, so maybe I have a Microsoft logo somewhere. Let's go into Pictures and use the Microsoft logo. And maybe I'll change the background, put it green. Now that I've done that, I can select the Save option. I can save to the cloud or this computer. The reason why you would want to choose one over another is that to the cloud, you will be able to publish it directly from your tenant. But if you build your app to use in another tenant or another environment, you can save to this computer. It will create a zip file, and you can send the zip file to somebody else along with the database, and then they will be able to reuse your app in their own environment. So now that I've selected that I want to save it to the cloud, I can just come here at the bottom and press Save. So it's saving the app to the cloud. Now that it's saved, I'm the only one who can use it. I need to share my app. And by selecting the share feature that is right here, there's 2 types of share I can do. The first one is say, hey, what if I win to the lottery and I leave my job tomorrow? Well, we want some people to be able to take over my app and continue building on it. So I'm going to share with a co-owner. And in this case, will be my good colleague, Mikhail Rock. And I can select Mikhail here as a co-owner. So not only will be able to access the app and use it, but it will also be able to edit it. Also, I can add distribution lists or external users for sharing the app with them directly. But also, by selecting an external user, using Azure B2B guests. So where you want to share with people external to your organization, don't think of this necessarily as a B2C scenario. In most cases, you want to share with people that do pretty much the same job as your internal people. Let's say contractors. You might have some people doing inspections that are in-house because your office is in, the Pacific Northwest. But in New York, you might not have a local presence and you might rely on a partner ecosystem. So then you could equip those contractors with the same kind of apps that you share with your employees. And you just have to remember, you need to share them the data source also, because they will only have an app that displays nothing. Now that you share this app, you just click share here. This is exactly what's going to happen. People will receive an email, say, hey, Kim has shared an app with you. Click here to launch it. And once they want to do that, they'll be able to use their mobile phones to interact with the app instead of using it through the browser. So let's look at how that is working. If I switch to my mobile here, I'm going to be refreshing my apps. And somewhere in there, if we're lucky, the app will be uploaded right now. It might take a minute or two sometimes. So let's just wait a second and see it appear. Now that I've located my app in my mobile phone, and the reason why I have access to those apps is that when I install the Power Apps app, so which is the player, it's like an Office app, just like you would add like the Word or the Excel app. When you install Power App on your phone, you log into your app with your credentials using single sign-on, which is then connected to your Active Directory. And since Power Apps knows all the apps you have access to, the list of apps that you have here only includes those that you should see. And here I have the Site Inspection app. And when I launch it, I'll see exactly the same app that we've built together on the web, displaying all the same information here live. And then I can select the Contoso building. I can see all the information that is in there. We saw that the title was on top of it. We can rename my app. I can change the zip code, call it 98005. Maybe it was a mistake when we entered the data. Save the data, and we're good. So what we saw now is that it's fairly easy for any user to build an app in Power Apps and share this app with internal and external users. So in summary, what we saw today was that Power Apps allows you to build custom business apps to make powerful new solutions. The potential to increase process efficiency in the areas of communication and data. Now that you've built your first app, consider areas that could benefit from custom solutions at your business. Start thinking of processes that frustrate you and consider how you can leverage Power App to improve them for everyone. Power Apps can reference elements within the app to create dynamic solutions and a friendly interface. With endless customization options, Power Apps can be used to enhance any business processes. And creating and maintaining apps are simple and easy to learn, even for those without a computer programming background. So now let's take a look at how you can leverage Microsoft Power Automate to enhance your Power Apps. In this module, we'll explore, understand, and learn about Power Automate. How two businesses are using Power Automate to provide better customer experiences. Learn how to describe the business value and feature in Power Automate. See how Power Automate works and looks from the user's perspective. Power Automate allows businesses to do just that by leveraging hundreds of connectors, templates, triggers, and action to allow beginners and advanced developers alike to craft powerful workflows and increase business efficiency. We'll create a flow from a template. We'll create a flow triggered from the common data service. We'll automate an approval request, and then we'll utilize the approval center. So let's get an overview of what is Power Automate. Power Automate using different scenarios and capabilities of the Power Automate. So like automating of repetitive tasks like moving data from one system to another, guiding a user through a process so they can complete the different stages, connecting to external data sources via one of the hundreds of connectors or directly via an API, and automating desktop-based processes with robotic process automation or RPA capabilities. Power Automate intelligent automation for all. You can automate at scale, allowing everybody in your organization to automate workflows using their favorite on-premises and cloud-based apps and services, from end users, professional developers, to IT. You can also seamlessly secure your integrations, confidently enable end users to build automated workflows in a secure, compliant manner, and focus your skilled IT resources on more complex strategic work. You can also accelerate productivity by maximizing repetitive, manual, time-consuming tasks and create more time for your teams to focus on strategic work with easy-to-use low-code, no-code tools, templates, and connectors. And finally, intelligent automation. Streamline how you work by combining the power of artificial intelligence with automated workflows and business processes. To allow you to scale your automation efficiently, you can use pre-built templates. You can build automated workflows using pre-built templates and tailored automation. You can also automate your favorite apps and services. There's over 300 of them to scale to automate across all your favorite apps and services. You can integrate with the Microsoft ecosystem with native connectors to Azure, Microsoft 365, and Dynamics 365. You can also bring your on-premise data interacting with the cloud, so access and integrate data across on-premises software and cloud services. So an example is, how would you build a purchase order approval? Approvals are a great process to build in Power Automate. They are often defined, yet manual. Check out the following scenario for an example. The user starts the process by going into a Power App and creating a purchase order request. Once they submit the request, the information is sent to Power Automate flow. The flow can be built to evaluate the request and then route the request based on criteria such as submitting user and requested amount. The first action that could be to send the request to the user's manager. The manager could be automatically retrieved from Azure Active Directory, avoiding prompting for duplicate information. By applying intelligent automation, you can automate legacy software. Your on-premises software sometimes do not have APIs. You can integrate them through the screen or through the UI. You can also build AI models and publish them with AI Builder. You can perform end-to-end automation from simple approvals to complex workflows. All of that saves time by recording and automating tedious tasks. So here's another example of a purchase order approval. After the manager receives the approval and approves, the flow can then provide conditional logic. Typically, this might be something like, hey, if the purchase order request is greater than $10,000, send it to the VP, and if not, then automatically approve the purchase order. Here's an example of what this flow may look like. You'll have the entry point as the Ask Manager Approval, and if the equal is to approve, then check if it's over 10,000. If yes, ask for VP approval, then triggering an approval workflow. If no, approve directly and terminate the workflow. In both cases, send an email once it's approved. Very simple, right? So there's 3 types of flow that you can create with Power Automate. You can create event-driven flows. These flows allow you to build with a trigger and then one or more actions. There are multitudes of triggers and actions available thanks to the existing connectors. You'll see these as My Flows and Team Flows in Power Automate. The only difference between My Flows and Team Flows is ownership. With a My Flow, you are the sole owner, while a Team Flow has more than one owner, and you're part of that owning group. Business process flow are built to augment the experience when using model-driven apps and the common data service. Use these to create a guided experience in your model-driven app. And it now can be used as a standalone without requiring a model-driven app in the background. With UI flows, these are RPA or robotic process automation flows, allowing you to record yourself performing actions on your desktop or within a web browser. You can then trigger a flow to perform that process for you. You can also pass data in or get data out of the process, letting you automate even manual business processes. And now, UI flows allows you not only to perform those tasks on your behalf, but you can do them in a unattended manner running on virtual machines, therefore allowing you to automate much more processes at the same time, contiguously or simultaneously. And finally, you can add artificial intelligence to your flow without writing any line of code. You can take advantage of any of these AI capabilities, but you must start by building a model. You can use PowerApps.com and use a wizard of AI Builder to run you through the building and training the model. There are there's currently 11 different models available to you, like we saw yesterday, and they are in two different categories. Either you can use templates that we built for you, or you can build your custom models around prediction, for example. So here's a good example on how you can bring RPA and Power Virtual Agents to help TrueGreen augment their customer service satisfaction. So let's just watch this video together.
For over 40 years, TrueGreen has helped homeowners create beautiful and healthy lawns. And one of the most important ways they engage their customers is with the TrueGreen website. And in the past, if a customer wanted to schedule an appointment for a TrueGreen agent to come out to their home, they'd have to call a 1-800 number during business hours, very lengthy, painful process. However, with Power Virtual Agents, TrueGreen has been able to completely transform how they engage their customers. Their customers can now just walk up and report the actual issue that they're facing, and this will go use Power Virtual Agents on the back end to identify common issues that can be causing that problem, and it even integrates with the TrueGreen knowledge base, so it can pull back all the relevant information for that particular problem. And on top of that, with all that additional information, I can even go start to schedule an appointment. And just by providing my email address, it will actually go to the TrueGreen backend, call their scheduling APIs, and find the next best time for me to have an appointment. And just like that, I'm able to go book a TrueGreen agent to come out to my home. Something that used to take a few hours, now could just take a couple minutes. But what's really special about it is how they built it. TrueGreen used Power Virtual Agent, the newest addition to the Power Platform, which makes it possible for everyone in the world to go create chatbots without having to write any code. And the way Power Virtual Agents works is we can see on the right-hand side of the screen a visual designer that captures the entire chatbot experience as well as the AI that backs it. And on the left-hand side, something called tracing, which makes it easy for you to actually watch how your customer interacts with that chatbot. So if I go run through the same set of steps as I was doing before, we can see that on the right-hand side of the screen, the Power Virtual Agent chatbot will automatically start showing all the different steps as they run through. And if I zoom in here, we can see all the different user responses that I offered. And if I go back out, we can see that's exactly what the customer sees in their chat experience as well. And this just continues to advance through using all kinds of great AI capabilities without requiring code or data science. And if I want to go schedule an appointment, that requires calling out to the TrueGreen backend system. And to do that, I use Power Automate. Power Automate has over 275 different connectors, which make it possible to connect to all your different business applications right out of the box. So when I provide my email address, that actually is going to that back-end system and looking up the next best time for me to have an appointment and to send a TrueGreen agent out. And for this next part, when I confirm that I want to have this appointment, we can see that it's using Power Automate again. However, the system I want to interact with is a contact management system, which is legacy and Win32 app, which doesn't have any APIs. The only way I can talk to it is through the UI. And that's where the brand new UI Flows capability of Power Automate comes into play. It makes it possible for me to just record a series of steps on my desktop, which will then run in the background as part of my standard Power Automate workflows. And just to show how easy that is, I can launch the TrueGreen contact management application. I can go take an input from the virtual agent for the email for the user, paste that in there. I can then go click search after I do that, and that will actually make it so that I can go search that particular record in that contact management system. So I switch over to, say, the Activities tab, and then what I want to do is I want to capture all of the outputs from that chat experience, because that information will be useful for the TrueGreen agent when they go out to the home. And that makes it possible so the customer has a complete end-to-end experience with TrueGreen, all integrated and highly automated. And when I click Done, I can switch back to Power Automate, and we can see inside that same web-based Power Automate visual designer, all the steps I just recorded are visible. And if I expand each of these individual steps, we can see the search box, the text command, all of that information is captured in a completely automated way that allows me to very easily record this information in that contact management system. Now, I'm switching back to Power Virtual Agent. And once I confirm this appointment, it's actually going to go trigger that UI flow that I just built. And what this is going to do is it's going to capture all that information that I just was entering inside the chatbot and open up that Win32 application and simulate all the same keyboard inputs and mouse clicks that I just did. And this uses 3 different types of rules and AI to make sure that it's selecting exactly the right control in that UI automation, making it incredibly robust and durable. And this is a great example. This is a great example of how when you use the Power Platform, you can do 2 really amazing things. The first is without writing any code. Everyone can be a developer and completely transform how your business operates. And the second is that you can do all of it without replacing your back office software or systems. Between data connectors and UI flows, we can connect to anything in your business and make it easy and actually affordable to go completely transform your company in a very short period of time.
You just saw how easy it is for TrueGreen to automate complex processes with other solutions. When their customer service centers are closed or just overwhelmed, they can use Power Virtual Agents that convert everything into their legacy system that has no API to convert that into a real field service intervention. So let's see how we can build different ways using templates in Power Automate to create your own flows. It's easy to add artificial intelligence to your flow without writing code. With the hundreds of triggers, actions, and connectors, sometimes the hardest part about Power Automate can be figuring out where to start. So to help you get started, there is countless flows templates available to help you build a solution. To see all of the available templates, you can sign into Power Automate and select Templates from the left menu. With Power Automate, you don't think of running a flow the same way as you do with Power Apps. Instead, you perform the activity that triggers the flow to run. So when defining triggers, there are a few different types. When something changes, these are triggers that run when data is changed. Could be a new item created in SharePoint, a lead is updated in Dynamics 365, or when an event has been deleted from Outlook, for example. On a schedule, you can set up a flow to be triggered at a certain time of the day and with an occurrence. This allows for workflows such as checking every day at 8 a.m. if there's an account renewal pending, and if so, sending an email to the necessary people. And then there's on a button press. This trigger takes shape in many different ways. This can be when a flow virtual button is run through the mobile app, or a physical button is clicked with third parties option, or even when a button is pressed inside of Power Apps. This gives you that control to run a flow on demand. So now let's look together at how we can build a simple approval workflow directly in Power Automate. So let's switch to our Power Automate portal and let us create a new flow. So remember from the previous example, we have a form that is sent to us, and then the information from the forms goes directly into SharePoint. And now I want to make sure that I can approve who is coming to the event, because maybe we have limited places, so we don't want to have competitors, we don't want to have employees, and maybe some vegetarian meals or some dietary will require an approval and or maybe some actions to make sure that the caterer can provide the right thing. So how do we do this? Well, we know that our database is SharePoint, so it would be nice to start our flow from SharePoint. And for that, we can use a create from template. And let's just say here, create item or start an approval. and start an approval when an item is added. That's exactly what we want. So instead of building the whole thing by hand, we can use templates that are made available to us. And here I have all the connections because it's single sign-on. Office 365 knows who I am. Therefore, I don't need to authenticate. But if I was using multiple tenants, I could change the authentication in different systems. Or if I was using non-Microsoft systems, I could enter the credentials to those systems like SAP or Salesforce. Now, when we use a template, it's going to create all the arborescence of my approval for me. So the only thing I have to do is fill the information that is presented in front of me. Again, it knows who I am, so it knows which SharePoint sites I have access to and what are the different lists of that site. And then when it's time to start an approval, we're just going to send information from the SharePoint list item that we just created dynamically. So we can say, hey, please review this invitation, this invite for, here we have first name. I'd like to have last name. So I'm just going to select here in the dynamic content from, and I can add company. Simple as this. Now it's time to decide who will approve the invite. In this case, I'm just going to select myself. And then we can use different information in the details. I can just remove the created on, created by. Just say, please review following. And then I can say, okay, what am I going to do in terms of information that is relevant for the approval? Well, one of them may be the sessions they will attend. So if I go down the list here of all the items of my SharePoint list, I have the session 1 value. I can also select session 2 value. So just by scrolling here, should be here somewhere, session 2 value. And then we can also select what is the meal preferences are. And then I can still just roll back. I'm going to give you a little more room here and select what are the meal preferences. If I can find it, I can just type it, and we have it right here, meal preferences value. I can also have a link to the record, so whenever the manager wants to approve, you can just click on the link and automatically go to the record and the item name description. Now, in the condition section that we have here, we'd say, hey, if it's approved, let's inform the creator that it is approved. And if not, let's give him all the information why. And all that dynamic data here can actually give more detail on why don't we want to approve it. Also, if we need escalation, we can send an email with all the information of me and my manager directly from Office users. The only thing I have to do now is to save it. And what I want to do is to test it. I can check for logical errors. I don't have any right now. So then I'm good to go. And will the text, I'm just going to say, I'll perform the action myself. I'm going to save and test. And now the only thing I have to do is to go back to SharePoint and create a new person. So by creating that new person, let's just call him that person Kim2, Dupree 2, company Microsoft Test 2, job title GBB, and then the different sessions I want to attend to. I want to learn how to make flows in the morning and maybe Power BI dashboards in the afternoon, just like you guys are doing right now. My meal preference is caviar. I like fancy food. And yes, I have visited last year. And that's the information that I'm going to enter into my SharePoint list. Now, this is the trigger for my approval to start. So you just saw here I have an email asking me to review a record. By opening the email, I'll have all the information that we talked about. I have review the following, review the awesome flows, beautiful dashboard, and that person wants to have caviar. So then I can contact my caterer and say, hey, we need one more caviar. But then I can automatically approve directly from my email without leaving this experience. This is one good way to do it. But there's also another way to do the same thing. Let's say you probably receive tons of approvals in a day for multiple systems, approving vacations for your employees, approving travel expenses. And it's kind of complicated when the approval of all those systems have to happen in the system. What if we can use modern approvals to allow you to have a single hub to approve everything? And this is what we've done. So in the action item part of Power Automate, you can look at all the approvals that are requested that needs your attention. And here I can say, hey, I can approve for Kim Chu. Approve. Let's go. You can also do that on your mobile phone. There's a Power Automate app with the same thing. And you see here, I have another email saying, hey, your item has been approved. So now you saw how easy it is to create a workflow for an approval starting from a template and apply it to SharePoint lists. And then that SharePoint list can be the database for your Power Apps to greet people when they show up. Everything is in a single place using authenticated users and your approvals. Now, let's go one step further. Let's build a business process workflow. And business process flows are great to make sure that you have different stages of a major process that can then trigger actions in different systems. And to do that, you can put those business process flows out inside of your model-driven app, but also they can now live on their own. So you don't need to attach them to a specific app, or neither do they have to live in Dynamics 365. So let's get started and build our own process flow together. So where you want to start is starting from Microsoft Power Automate. And in Power Automate, when you land, you can choose a different selection of creating your own flows. It can be an automated flow, instant flow, a scheduled flow, UI flow, which is our RPA. And then at the end here, you have what we call the business process flow. When you select your business process flow, you'll be invited to give it a name. So what we're going to do now is just create a account validation process. So when you create a new account in your organization, people will validate if the address is right, if it does not a duplicate, and also what is the credit limit for this account. So we'll just call it account validation. So this is the display name. The technical name will be created automatically for you. And then you just select the entity that you want to put this business process on. You can start from nothing and just create your business process and then choose to map it at some entity. But for us today, we're going to do it on the account entity, which is just right here. So now, the way you navigate in a business process flow is a little different from Power Automate. The first thing you have to notice is that you have your taskbar where you have the simple actions. You have your canvas in which you can have your states, and when your different stages and actions are too large, you can use the mini map to navigate easily through your process. And on the right-hand side, you have all the different stages, conditions, data steps, workflows, actions, and flow steps that you can put into your business process flow. So let's start with something simple. The first thing you want to do is select the first stage of your process and give it a name. And just call it account creation. The category is not necessarily mandatory here. It's usually what we use for reporting when we had those business process flows included in Dynamics 365. But right now, we don't need that step. Your business process flow will start on the account entity, and this is fine here. Now that we created our first stage, let's look at the different steps that we have in them. The first thing we want to do is add a data step. There's always one there waiting for you, so you can just call it here, account name. So what you want to do here is just put the name, and then you can actually use your business process to fill information in it, okay? And you can decide if it's required or not to pass to the next stage of your process. So even if the field is not required in your CDS, you can make it mandatory in your business process before moving to different stages. And in this case, it would make sense to put it required. The next action that we want to do is maybe add a little more data on this account, and we'll just use maybe the owner. So in CDS, everything that is an owner mean that it's the owner of the record from a database security perspective. And then you can add multiple data steps in this stage. But what we want to do now is just create a new stage. And this is another stage in our process. We'll call this one address validation. So maybe you have a team that does data quality or data integrity, and they can validate certain records to make sure that if they become master data, they can be used across the organization without any problem. Here you can see you can also change from to another entity. So your business process flow is actually multi-entities. But in our case, we'll keep it simple. Keep it in the account. Click apply. And then you can choose the first data step and make sure that if you do some territory management, you might want to have a data step that will maybe the city. And then you'll select the address one city. And you can add another component. You can just drag and drop. And then you can choose you don't want to put it on top or below. You can just put it below here. And let's just use the postal code. But you get the idea. If it's country, if you put in there all the information that are important for you. So address one, zip postal. Okay. And then maybe you already have some fields to say, hey, this account is validated. So I'm just going to add another data step right here. And in a data step, let's just call it validation MDM. And the beauty of it is that those business process workflows, they preserve the data structure that you built into your CDS. So if you have certain types of field, let's just call it validate for master data. I think that's the name of the field here. Just going to scroll down. So when you do create the different types of fields on which you might have added field level security, it means that certain types of field can only be changed by certain people. And if you put that in your business process workflow, it can serve as an approval to allow you to move to different steps. So you can be multiple people working on the same business process. And it's a good way to do it over time. And then you'll see when we launch it, you can see how many times the process has been on each stages of your process. So here we're just going to use validated for MDM. And we will click apply. And now you might want to have some validation for credit. And here we'll just use the credit validation. And it's still on the account. And then on the first data step, we might want to put, let's say, a credit score or credit limit. And then there's a field for that somewhere around here, credit limit. Component, you add another data step. And then you can have like credit old. If your account has been over its credit limit, so you want to be able to do that. And we're just going to select the credit hold that is right here. And one last component, whoops. You just need to apply them if you want to make sure that they are there. And one last data step that is approved for credit. And then the interesting thing here that you can do is that if you have certain data, let's say your account is valid for credit, okay? And I just have a field which is right here somewhere, account approved for credit. All right, so let's say that your account is approved or not approved. You could add a condition to say, hey, if this account is approved, you can do such and such. And if this account is not approved, you have to go through a different process. You can do the same thing if your account goes over the credit limit. If they're filed for bankruptcy, then you might have a process. Hey, let's deactivate the account, or let's make sure that no more orders can be placed on this account. So you can put that in your business process as part of the validation. And then when people will update that information, then you might be able to change other values in the account form to make sure that you can either continue or control what happens to your account there. So you get the idea. You can add as many steps as you need. You can create branches with conditions, and you can trigger workflows and different actions in there. But we'll just keep it simple for our exercise for today. So the next thing you want to do is click Save. And then there's a validation process that you can go through. and it says there's one error found in the process, you can just come here and say, oh, the data step 2 as a problem. We didn't select the data field. So we created the owner, but we didn't map it to a field in the entity. So let's just come here and select owner. And if we apply and the change is successful, we can run another validation. Validation is successful, and now we can activate the process. If you do not activate the process, it will not be available for you in your model-driven apps or as a business process workflow on its own. So now that I have activated my process, the only thing I have to do is to go back to Power Automate, go to My Flows, and you remember we have My Flows, My Team Flows, but now we have this Business Process Flow section. This is where all those business process workflow will reside. So by clicking on it, I can see all the different business processes that we have, but most importantly, the one that we just created. And if I launch it, it's going to launch it in a, this case, Microsoft 365 screen, because I'm within the Dynamics 365 organization. This is why you have this here. But for those who are familiar with Dynamics 365, this is a unified client interface, or UCI in the Power Apps, where we call it the model-driven form. But look at it. It's not an app. It's just a form that is available in CDS on which you can map any business processes without having to launch the app. And my business process is right here at the top. It's the account validation process. It has been active for less than a minute. And remember, we said in account creation, we're going to give it a name. So we're going to call it test account. And the owner is filled automatically. Well, simply because I'm the one who's created it. But I can change that if I need to. And now that I created that, I can save my record. And the city name is mandatory. Let me see that here. So let's pretend that we live in Paris. So all those validation that you put in the CDS, they work both for the account and also for the business process. So you preserve the data integrity that you have. So here, city was a mandatory field. And then when it's saved, I click saved and closed here. Just relaunch it real fast. And now you can create a new account. Let's say account test 2. And then we're going to come here to say Montreal. Then we're just going to save the account instead of clicking save and close. And now I can see that in my business process workflow, I have my account test 2. And then I can move to the next stage. And then the next stage will be address validation. I already have the city. I need the postal code. So H2N1H1. And is it validated by MDM? In this case, as an admin, I have access to all those fields, but I could change it to yes or no. And if I click yes, then I can switch to the next tab, which is the credit limit. And at each step of the process, you see how long as the action has been on this process. So if you have, let's say, an SLA to say we will approve all new accounts within 24 hours, this is one thing that you might want to follow, and then you can report on those things. So let's say the credit limit is 35,000. It's not on credit all, and it's been approved for credit. So all that process that we've built and used within a few minutes, you can imagine how much more comprehensive it can get when you want to add more steps and contribute with more people on your business process. So that's it in a nutshell. How you can create a business process workflow, how you can use it without having to launch an app, and how you can interact with your business process in the context of a record you want to see. So in summary, Power Automate allows us to do many things. It allows you to bring automation to your business processes with a different type of flow to cover different business processes, plus the ability to connect data from hundreds of data sources with a few clicks. Power Automate affords great flexibility. All it takes to get started is knowledge of your business processes. Power Automate is a web-based service for automating your business processes. It has different offerings to meet your needs. Event-driven flows, business process flows, and UI flows each have their own unique properties. You can connect to hundreds of data sources with the built-in connectors, or you can build your own custom connectors. If you know your business process, you can bring automation to it with Power Automate and without writing any traditional code. Power Automate has hundreds of connectors to ensure you can create useful solutions that integrate with all your business programs. Has hundreds of templates that combine actions and triggers from connectors to create workflows useful for business scenarios. Save your business time and energy spent on repetitive tasks and make your business run more smoothly. And finally, the Approval Center allows users to easily see and manage approvals from a variety of flows to ensure ease of use and efficiency.
I hope these two examples gave you a few ideas on how to build your next application or workflow. Before we end the day with Module 5, let's take one last 10-minute break, and then when we get back, we will learn how to build dashboards.
Welcome back from the break, and now it's time for the final chapter, Module 5, Learn how to leverage Microsoft Power BI. Over the next few minutes, we'll cover the introduction of Power BI, where you'll be able to describe the business value and features of Power BI, see how Power BI works and looks from a user's perspective, and we'll finish up by building your own dashboard, connecting to data with Power BI Desktop, transform and model your data that you've just imported, build basic visualizations, create and share dashboards, and discover how to collaborate with Power BI. So, without further ado, just let's get started. Power BI is a self-service platform that helps you discover, analyze, and visualize data in order to share and collaborate insights with your colleagues. Visualizations are interactive and scalable reports based on collections of different data sources that can be from your CRM like Salesforce, from the web, from Access Database, Excel spreadsheets, SQL, and all other different services that you can use online like MailChimp and other. You can bring all that data into Power BI and build a dashboard using all of that data. So Those data sources can be either structured data, but they can also be coming from different sources, just like Facebook, Salesforce, and Google Analytics. So the Power BI editor allows you to bring all that data into it, model it, and build your own reports. And then you can share that data on the Power BI desktop, but also on the Power BI service, which is the web version that people will use to consume that data. But it also allows you to build BI dashboards that can be used on mobile devices. So all of that, even if it's a self-service tool with lots of data across your organization, must rely on top-level security and administration tools. So similar to many Microsoft services, Power BI is built on Azure, which is Microsoft cloud computing infrastructure and platform, ensuring the same level of security. Users log in with their credentials, are held in Azure Active Directory, and control the level of sharing for every report, data, or dashboard, determining whether a recipient can edit or only view items. Power BI administration is the management of a Power BI tenant, including the configuration of governance policies, usage monitoring, and provisioning of licenses, capacities, and organizational resources. So this is how you can make sure that role-based access control that you have for each individual users in each of those data sources are kept consistent throughout the whole experience. So even though you use Power BI, the end users do not gain additional privileges over the data source. So how do you transform your data into insight? Well, you need to get your data first, then analyze, visualize, publish, and collaborate. This is the typical workflow that you'll have when you want to start with Power BI. So let's just look at how this workflow is made for the end users. So directly from Power BI desktop, you'll be able to get your data and build dashboards in minutes. And then you'll be able to use natural language query to get information on the data without having to create new reports every single time. You can get quick insights augmented by artificial intelligence. You can also integrate with Cortana, so you can ask information about your data directly from your start menu or any Cortana-enabled device. You can also build very advanced custom visualization. So if you use IoT and you want that data to be represented in context about your airplane engine or your factory or any asset, you can do all of that in Power BI directly. And then you can publish to the web, so you can share that data with external audiences. Using Power Portals is a good example of that. If you do project management and you want to share the progress of the project, you can use that on the web. And also it integrates natively with a number of Microsoft apps and services like Microsoft Excel's Team. And so you can use Power BI embedded in those different services. And then when you publish it, you can export any Excel data to Power BI. And finally, you can use Power BI Mobile, on which not only you can have access to the data, but you can also annotate, collaborate, and share the findings that you do on that data with the rest of your team. So Power BI Desktop is the tool that allows you to do discovery and exploration, easy report authoring, custom visualization, and even R integration. So now Power BI Desktop allows you to connect to the data all around you. You can connect to data in the cloud and on-premises using the on-premises data gateway. You can shape, transform, and clean your data for analysis. You can also join and model data from multiple data sources. And you can extend the analytics with technologies like R. So once you're done modeling your data, you can publish it to Power BI, either from the Power BI Desktop, but you can also publish to Excel using Power BI, the Power BI button in Excel. So all of those powerful self-service analysis are available from the desktop and also from Excel. And then many clients are using it to large data sets in the B2C world, in the B2B world. And a good example of that is how the Miami Heat was able to boost their season sales ticket by 30% and save about $1 million in operation just using the power of the Power Platform, specifically Power BI. So they've built a whole workflow of connecting to a multiple system for their purchases and then being able to add this with Dynamics 365 And then you had the proper profile for each individual users. And then they can send those different systems for doing better targeting on Facebook, for example, in Adobe Campaign. You can read all of this on customers.microsoft.com. Now it's time for us to build our own dashboard. And over the next few minutes, we'll learn how to connect to data, how to transform and model our data, visualize it, and then we'll be able to build a dashboard and collaborate and share with our colleagues. And the place where we want to start is Power BI Desktop. And this is where you can build your reports and then transform them into dashboards. And the first thing we want to do here is to get data. In this example, we're a chief financial officer. We use lots of Excel spreadsheets. And there's one here that is about our financial, about our product manufacturing costs and whatnot. And we want to select the table here that is called financial. We're going to be loading that data. And as soon as it's loaded, we have the option to transform the data. So by clicking transform data, we're going to be able to see all the different columns and rows of information. And we can also add more insights to this data set just by creating a new column. And it's going to be a custom column here. And let's just name this column test column. And those columns can be, mathematical equation, just like you would do in Excel. So let's say I want to have like the units sold times the manufacturing costs. And I can just click OK. And here I have my new column. And I have this new value I can work with for my reports. Now, the only thing that we need to do is to close and apply. And then I see my column that is right here. So when I look at my data, right, I can just say, hey, this column here, I'm not going to be using it in this report. So I can simply hide this column because we're not going to be using it. However, we're going to be using a number of other data sources. So let's go back to our modeling stage. But just before that, when you have more than one table, you can come here into the relationship view. And then you can model with different tables. In this case, we only have one table, so we don't have to dive deeper into our data sets. But if you use a SQL database or multiple SharePoint lists and or Excel spreadsheets that you want to connect together with tables, this is where you can model that data. But what we want to do now is to visualize the data with a simple visualization. So let's start with a blank slate, and let's select a different visualization. So what we're going to be choosing here is a key influencer. So we can choose different metrics and see how they interact with one another. So the first one we want to do here is see how discounts can influence other factors. We'll go also with products, with our profit, our segments, and our units sold. And you see that from the analytics already, it has more information about how different KPIs influence one another over time. And this we can save on our dashboard and on our report and then use it in the dashboard. But also there are other ways to work with data. We can use charts just like we do in Excel. So let's say line and cluster chart. So we can add it to our report here. Let's just bring it on the right. And you see everything is drag and drop, easy to use. And here what we're going to be choosing is different data sets to have different ideas on how our manufacturing price is influenced with our product, profit, and sales price. And then all of them right now are on the same axis. But what we want to do is take our profit and put into the line value so we can have a good idea of the progression of our profit for different product lines. And all of that you can expand with more and more tiles. You have different varieties of information, and you can always bring the information that you have from different fields into your report. Now, it's time to save this into a dashboard. So what we want to do here is simply to publish all of that to Power BI Desktop or to Power BI Service. So here's the Publish button, and we're going to save this. And then we're going to choose to save it into our baseline test so we can come back to it a little later. And then it's going to offer us to upload it to the Power BI service. And we're going to be putting into my workplace. So if you have multiple workplaces, you can Select the one that you like. And then it's loading directly over there. And we can open our new dashboards directly from here. So when I go to Power BI, so I'm just going to open my web browser here. Let's go to Power BI directly, or let's start from Office 365, portal.office.com. Now that I'm in Office 365, it knows who I am with single sign-on, and I have my Power BI tile. By launching my tile, what I want to do is locate the new report I just shared. And by doing this, I can go to my workspace. And here I have my reports. And in this report, we have the baseline test that we just created. By launching it, I'm going to be in the report view. And we'll find all the different reports elements that we've already created. So now what I want to do is to build a dashboard. So dashboard will use a collection of information from my report, but always be available on my mobile and on the website as well. So what I want to do here is click Pin Visual. And I can create a new dashboard, and we're going to call it Baseline. And now on that dashboard, I can add multiple ties. I can also add titles. So I can say, hey, these are our sales are doing good, right? So we can have like a little block of text here. And then we can call it sales are doing great. So we can already share information with our people here. And also we are always invited to create the phone view, so it will reflow automatically, so it's easier to use on the phone. But maybe we want to do some other thing as well. Maybe we want to collaborate. Maybe we want to take this report here and add a comment. So I can come here, and on that data, I can share information. So why is this higher when should be lower? So instead of taking a screenshot and sending it to an email, I can simply have a conversation with all my colleagues, and I will know who can reply, and we can get more information about what's going on. And then if I want to learn more information about our data, I can use natural language with the Q&A function. And I can just say, what is the largest gross sale? And then automatically, the system offers me a tile to give me more detail on my information. So I didn't need to create it from the report section. And I can also pin that visual directly on my dashboard. And I can use it anywhere I want. I can make it smaller, it reflows, make it bigger. So I can have any more data on my dashboard and reuse it anywhere. So now it's time to share my dashboard. So what I can come here is use the share feature. And you would need a premium license to be able to do it. And now what I can do with the share feature is to say, hey, I can share with colleagues to email. So I can say my colleague Mikhail will have access to this dashboard. So it's automatically connected to Active Directory. And so those people can have access to this dashboard. It can be a security group. It can be an individual distribution list. So all people in that distribution list will have access to this dashboard. So now that I've shared my dashboard, my colleagues will be able to collaborate with me with that dashboard. And that's it. We've built, created, and modeled our dashboard, and then we can share that with our colleagues. So the takeaway from this is that Power BI helps businesses analyze existing data to receive insight and make better decisions. With the power of security backed by Azure and an intuitive interface, any skill level of user can make powerful reports and dashboards to use across the organization. Microsoft Power BI is a collection of software services, apps, and connectors that work together to turn your unrelated sources of data into coherent, visually immersive, and interactive insights. Leveraging Power BI and Microsoft technologies can lead to significant returns in terms of not only revenue, but your business users' ability to make beneficial decisions. Power BI is built on Azure, Microsoft's cloud computing infrastructure and platform, ensuring your data is secure and not only accessible by authenticated users.
Power BI allows you to easily analyze, visualize, and collaborate on data. Now you can get started leveraging these capabilities to make better business decisions. Power BI Desktop is a free application for PCs that let you gather, transform, and visualize your data. It connects to many types of data sources, including local databases, worksheets, and data on cloud services. And it simplifies collaboration and improves the outcome by allowing you and your colleagues to work simultaneously on the same dashboards and report.
This concludes our session for today. Let's recap all the content that you've seen today. We started with an overview of the Power Platform components in Module 1, and then delved into how Power Apps and the Common Data Service work together to kickstart your project in Module 2. Then we learned how to build apps and automate tasks in Module 3 and 4 to end up with Power BI reports and dashboards in Module 5. Thank you for attending today's session. Remember, there are many ways you can continue your learning journey for the Power Platform, such as MS Learn, where we offer self-paced learning options. Whether you choose to take the exam now or continue with more learning, we hope you enjoyed today's session about the Power Platform.